Hi, this is Kate, and we're working with proportions. Imagine you're in charge of counting how many fish are in a lake. This poses a challenge because we can't see under the surface of the water. So you start to think, well, maybe we could drain all the water out and count all the fish flopping around at the bottom. That seems a little impractical. Maybe we could get our hands on some scuba gear and dive in and count every fish. Also poses its own challenges. Or maybe there's a more clever way. So which do you think we're going to talk about? Biologists and fish and game experts have developed a very clever way to count all the fish in a lake, and it involves proportions. So what they do is they have some total number of fish in a lake, they catch a bunch of them, they tag them so they can be identified later if they're caught again, and they throw them back in. So now a certain proportion, a number out of the whole, are tagged. The total fish in the lake is what we want to find, so let's give it a letter. Let's call it T. How many out of the total are tagged? Just by counting that first batch, we know that 9 of them are tagged. So then all they do is wait. They wait a few days or a few weeks until the fish mingle, swim around, visit their fish buddies, and they get all mixed up in the lake. Then they go out and they catch a new batch. In their second batch, they've caught 12 fish, and 2 of them are tagged. So what they do is they assume that the proportion of fish that are tagged in this new sample are in the same proportion as all the tagged fish out of the total fish in the lake. So they assume that these two fractions are equivalent. So what would the total number of fish T have to be to make these equal fractions? T would have to be 54. A simple way to figure it out is to notice that we'd have to multiply 2 times 6 to make 12. So we'd also have to multiply 9 times 6 to make an equivalent fraction on the other side. And 9 times 6 is 54. There's a shortcut you can use to solve any proportion, even if they're not so easy to figure out. Algebra tells us that we can multiply both sides of the equation by the same thing. We're going to multiply both sides by d, because on the right side, d divided by d is just a fancy 1. So if we multiply that 1 times c, we're just left with c on the right side. Then we'll multiply both sides of the equation by b, because that b over b is also a fancy 1. 1 times that d over a is just d over a. But look at the pattern here. d times a is equal to c times b. See how the things we multiply together in the original problem make a cross. So this is often called cross multiplying. Let's see how it works. 10/12 is the same as 25 somethings. We'll multiply the 10 times the x, and we'll multiply the 12 times the 25. Can you please solve this equation for x? "12 times 25 is 300, and 300 divided by 10 is 30. A 20 gigabyte portable music player can hold a certain number of hours of music. A 50 gigabyte player can hold 18 more hours. Hours of music is proportional to stored size. How many hours does each player hold?" So we try to draw a picture. These are portable music devices. One holds 20 gigs and the other 50 gigs. The 20 gigabyte player holds a certain number of hours of music. Very mysterious, but this is what we're trying to solve for in the problem. So let's just represent it right now with a letter. I'll use x. The 50 gigabyte player holds 18 more hours. So how do you think we can mathematically represent 18 more than x? 18 more than something indicates that we could add 18 to that something. Okay, so the 20 gig holds X hours, the 50 gig holds X plus 18 hours. The problem also tells us that hours of music is proportional to storage size. When you see proportional to or in proportion, what it's trying to tell you is that the quantities make equivalent fractions. How do you think it would make sense to set up equivalent fractions for this problem? If our fraction is gigabytes over hours on the left, to be equal, it has to be gigabytes over hours on the right. We'll solve the proportion by cross-multiplying. 20 times the x plus 18 and 50 times the x. Can you solve this equation for x? The solution is 12. Since we're multiplying the 20 times the whole quantity, x plus 18, we need to distribute that 20. Then get the x's together by subtracting 20x from both sides, and then divide both sides by 30. So the 20 gigabyte player holds 12 hours of music. How much does the 50 gigabyte player hold? The larger player holds x plus 18 hours, so 12 plus 18, which is 30. This is Kate, and you've been working with proportions.